Hey, happy Tuesday evening to you guys out there in Woo Nation. It's your fellas here back again, both on the same show at the same time during the week
This doesn't happen.
on another episode of
Woo!
Fantasy right here on rotoballer.com. That is right, rotoballer.com. And we want to tell you to win big in 2021 with rotoballer.com's NFL Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate your season long in DFS leagues? Rotoballer's NFL Premium Pass includes rankings, projections for all formats, get exclusive articles, DFS tools, lineup optimizers, and premium Slack chats. Join in on the winning and take 50% off of any premium pass. Use promo code WooFantasy for another 10% discount. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio. Sign up today and start rotoballing like a boss. That's right. Back again. Got the co-host in chair number 2. Nick Heffley, how are we doing there, sir?
Chair number 2, but chair number 1 in your hearts, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, sure.
I'm
Well,
great,
let's
man.
say, hey, chair number 2 might be as hot as a lap dance that Urban Meyer receives after a 0-4 start.
Ooh. When did that actually take place? Was it actually this week? Did that actually take place then, or is the video just surfacing?
Yes.
Okay.
No, yeah. It took place after the loss.
Okay.
He did not board the plane with the rest of the team. He said, "Hey, hang on, I gotta stay. I'm gonna visit with some family," and then that's what happened.
I didn't know all that.
Yeah, he was playing.
I have a life, so I've been a little busy there. Wow,
He was playing
even more interesting.
Playing Puppet Master with a young co-ed in the outskirts of Cincinnati after taking a beat down by the Bengals in the second half.
Gotta watch out for those Midwest girls.
Like that's what they came out this morning, and Shad Khan and all them were talking about. They've lost the trust of the coach. He has to regain it back, and all that fun stuff.
AKA, he's going to be the Tennessee Vols coach this next year.
Nah, I think the overwhelming prop out there is that he's going to be USC's next coach. That's the overwhelming favorite still currently. I think he's probably trying to work his way out of the job there in Jacksonville. But
he can't handle it anyway, B.
Yeah, that heart attack is coming on pretty quickly, I would assume, at this point in time. So
it's the big one.
Oh, how are we feeling after the first, let's say, technically quarter of the season is out of the way now in fantasy football? What's our takeaways early on?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a lot of my takes and my strategy coming into the year, I think have been by and large pretty spot on. I think us going running back heavy early on, you haven't seen exactly a ton of running backs from those mid rounds kind of emerge and vault up to the top. Whereas, I mean, a lot of the wide receivers that I had, I had told people, the whole time, Mike Williams, Marquise Brown, those were some of the guys that I was all about, getting a tight end in those mid rounds. They're a little bit earlier than some folks. I mean, those are the guys that are keeping on. So the teams that I did that with, they're doing well. So, but I think, it's going to be tough now because you're starting to get some injuries in. DJ Shark was a big guy and I know we'll probably get into that here in a little bit. But he was somebody that I had in quite a few leagues, and that's definitely hurting going down with the way that Jacksonville team was passing the ball. But by and large, I'm feeling good. I think I've got some good teams out there. I just need a couple things to kind of fall my way, as do most teams out there. You need one or two things to kind of fall your way to be able to set up a championship level team. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you mentioned it with the DJ Shark injury. We talked about that on the Sunday morning show. That's kind of something that's a big one. Hurts a little bit of the depth for a lot of players. A lot of owners out there that have DJ Shark that are rostered. Should kind of clear things up a bit in Jacksonville as far as the pass catching hierarchy goes. We should probably see the expected uptick in performance from Laviska Shenault. I know a lot of people were high on him coming into the season, but hopefully that adds to that situation now with Shark being out. You kind of divvy out the targets a little bit, but Dan Arnold coming in, I think shakes things up a little bit too down there. But speaking of injuries, your boy David Montgomery, news that news officially broke earlier today, out 4 to 5 weeks. That's looking more in terms of a situation where he's not going to be back until the week 11 game for the Bears after their week 10 bye. So that's a very substantial chunk of time that we're missing here. So how are we feeling now? Is this a situation where you feel like you need to hold Montgomery, or it depends on your roster and your record currently? Are you probably looking to trade him off so you can get pieces in the works now?
Yeah, trading him off. I mean, you're getting scrap dust for what his value actually is. The moves to hold. You got a lot of leagues now with extra IR positions, especially with COVID stuff going on. You hold on to David Montgomery. I mean, he's the kind of guy, you got somebody like Sony Michel on your bench. It's time to drop Michel and go get somebody that's actually going to play on a week-to-week basis and keep David Montgomery. So I think Damian Williams is a must-add that offense. I think you've seen the last couple of weeks where they're making a little bit more of a commitment to the run, and teams have to really respect Justin Fields at this point now. So Damian Williams is going to be a must-add in a lot of leagues, and I mean 4 to 5 weeks. I mean that's the vast majority of crunch time and leagues. It's time to add him and spend a decent little chunk of change, because he's not going to have a lot of competition there from Khalil Herbert. Tariq Cohen is still out. Even if he was, I wasn't necessarily going to be on him anyway. So go out and I think he's a 30 to 40% fab kind of guy right now.
Yeah, that's definitely something that really has to kind of be taken into mind as we get into the waivers tonight. Or even the ones that are done tomorrow. A lot of the people that are doing the fab, spending money on David Montgomery, you're looking at anywhere from 30 to 40%, I think, that you're using to spend on him. If you lost Montgomery, you probably have to keep in mind that you need to spend a little bit more to acquire him. It's kind of the same situation we were looking at with Christian McCaffrey just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Kind of the same scenario here. A lot of people, if you didn't have Hubbard already, you probably need to go about your business to do so to acquire the guy that's behind him. But that's kind of the difference that we're looking at between Montgomery or between Williams and Hubbard. Williams is at least shown in the past to be a respectable fantasy commodity that's been somewhat usable in the league from time to time, depending on the situation. How comfortable are you using Damian Williams over the course of the next few weeks if you were to acquire him in free agency?
I would say I'm very comfortable. I mean, look at this next week. I mean, he's got the Raiders this next week. I think that's a very nice matchup. Coming, you got the Packers the week following. You got the Buccaneers, which I would say would be a little bit tougher of a defense, and then a home game against the Niners. I mean, you're going to do a lot worse than Damian Williams right here, because I mean he's clear cut. Where so many situations like your Bills or Bucs situation or Texan situation, you got a muddy backfield. Even really the Eagles backfield, you got muddy situations where you're coming in. Damian Williams, he's pretty clear cut. I mean he actually did look good this last week. He's looked good really most of the year. Now, granted, he hasn't had a lot of opportunities. But he's definitely a guy that I think he's a plug and play at the very least at a flex.
Yeah, I think that's probably what you're looking at right now. Is you're probably plugging him into that flex position. Most people are losing an RB2 in Montgomery. I'm not sure Williams is going to fill that void. Is from a production standpoint, like you mentioned, the Raiders upcoming this week. I mean, that's a solid matchup there. They're a bottom 5-6 defense in terms of points allowed to running back. So that's going to be something that's going to be in his favor. They're still working the kinks out with this Matt Nagy, Bill Lazor offense. Who knows what's going on there?
I think they worked it out. I mean, you saw this last week that Bill Lazor did call the plays, and the offense looked good. So Matt Nagy,
that's right.
get onto the side there, pull a Mike McCarthy. get the hell out of the way, quit making
that's
decisions, and
encouraging
just
too.
be there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like that's encouraging. You would think from a fantasy standpoint is that Justin Fields was able to attack down the field a little bit. So that kind of opens things up. That's what we've mentioned on this podcast for the previous few weeks is that they've got to do something to kind of extend the plays and instead of just dropping back and waiting for the defense to get in their face. It's just you have to move your athletic quarterback around, and that's kind of what they're doing there. Outside of that, I mean, let's kind of get into some of the waivers for the week here. You've got several names that are out there, but here we are. You're 4 and 5 weeks in, and a lot of the depth on the waiver wire. A lot of us see it, especially you and I see it in a lot of the deeper leagues that we play in. It's very thin, and
it's been thin all year.
It's pretty much been thin all year. But the only exceptions that you have are when we come into situations like this week where you have injuries that are pushing players to kind of the top of the priority list. So you're seeing that with Damian Williams. We obviously figure he's going to be the top priority across the board in any league, whether you're running fab or you run straight standard waivers tonight. That's really kind of be the priority there with Damian Williams. Outside of that, I mean, if you kind of want to look just throughout the board a little bit, who's a player that you've got in mind right now that you might have your eye on based on need of your roster?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are struggling if they didn't go tight end early. I think Dawson Knox is going to be a big tight end pickup for a lot of folks. You heard it from me, and actually, B was the right call. I called Jared Cook over Dalton Schultz this week, and he responded. Now, granted, both those guys had really good weeks, but I think Jared Cook, if he's still out there, is definitely somebody to pick up as well. Looking down the list a bit, I think Kenneth Gainwell, depending on the league that you're in, could be somebody else to definitely target out there. He's seeing a very much of an uptick in terms of receptions. Granted, a lot of that's coming with the Eagles down, and he's getting a lot of late work, but he found the end zone this last week. So he's somebody else that I really want to go out there and try. And here's a guy's name who, again, I'm not as big on as you are, but I know he should be coming off injury here soon, the IR designation, and that's Ravens receiver Rashad Bateman. What are your thoughts on him and some of your favorite guys out there?
I like, obviously, if you've listened to the podcast over the course of the offseason, I like Bateman. I think that there's some potential there, later on down the season, later on down the line. He's not going to make an immediate impact. We know that. He's missed a good portion of the training camp. He's missed the first 4 weeks of the season. Likely going to be activated this week, but is he going to come in right away and overtake Sammy Watkins as the Ravens wide receiver 2? Probably not. You're probably going to be looked at as a situation where he's kind of slightly worked in, and it's going to be like kind of a typical little rise like this over the course of the next few weeks. But the thing is, what was the downside that we had to Rashad Bateman, Sammy Watkins, Marquise Brown? What's the downside that we thought about this offense in general heading into the season? Lamar Jackson and his passing ability. Mm-hmm. But he's actually been kind of on the uprise a little bit this year. He just provided his second career 300-yard game this past season, or this past week. So the workload's starting to increase as far as from a standpoint from him passing the ball. So they're adding some wrinkles there, and I think that's only going to help a player like Bateman coming in get down the field, open the routes up a little bit more. I think that's only going to be something that can be fruitful for Bateman. So, I mean, obviously, if I can add him this week, you're going to put in $1 in fab, $2, kind of sneak him in a little bit under the radar, try to get him on your roster at the end of the bench, and hopefully he pans out. But, kind of like what you have with a mindset from time to time as well is that, spend a little bit on the player, and if it doesn't pan out, you've only used $1 or $2, and then you can cut bait later on.
100%. I am definitely not in your boat. I do not like Rashad Bateman in terms of where he's at and where that passing offense is at. They just don't pass enough for my ability. But again, I would rather go out and spend $1 or $2 on Rashad Bateman than leave some crap receiver on my team like McCole Hardman or Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
I'd much rather go that because I easily look at Rashad Bateman as a better receiver than Sammy Watkins. I would look at him as my number 3 option on that team, clearly behind Marquise Brown, who this guy pegged all year. Are you prepared finally to say Marquise Brown is a viable wide receiver? Or are you still holding out hope, thinking he's just a gimmicky guy?
I mean, as we got into the season, my final rankings that I provided for the season for the 2021 season, I did have him ranked inside the top, I believe, 33. So I gave him a little bit of a rise up the rankings, especially with the fact that I knew Bateman was going to be out missing time. So you're looking at the guy that was kind of really truly going to be the alpha in that pass catching group. I mean, we've seen so far this season, Mark Andrews is disappointed a little bit. You have to get in the end zone through 4 weeks. Some of the workload has been there. He's been steady, but he's just not been giving you the production that you thought you were going to get drafting Andrews at 4, 5, or 6 at that tight end position. So, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Marquise Brown has had a steady, solid season. He provided the touchdown this last week that we all thought we were getting 2 weeks ago that didn't pan out because the balls went through his hands, and then he lays out for a fucking dime in that game against the Broncos. That's a nice just shot to the heart from the week prior. But anyways,
and you're to blame.
Yeah, you can blame that. Yeah, blame that one on me from 2 weeks ago. But oh well, I'll take it. I'll take the L's on that one.
That's when I knew I was scared, when you started taking him on DFS. I'm like, ooh, whoa. Back up here, buddy.
They were pumping the brakes. But I will say this: I had Dalton Schultz in every FanDuel lineup this past weekend, and he provided a nice boost to the economy for me over the weekend.
Okay.
But outside of that, you mentioned Gainwell. Gainwell's only 29% rostered currently across numerous leagues. Obviously, a guy that I've been a big proponent of for quite a while. I think that's a situation we're seeing. Obviously, the Eagles are pointing out the fact that they just don't trust Miles Sanders, and they're not ready to really kind of give him the ball. You're seeing Gainwell he's on the field constantly for the Eagles, especially in passing down situations, and that team is likely going to be trailing a lot. So that's good news for Gainwell's stock. And then if you've got him in a situation where you can add him to your running back depth, obviously it's a PPR standpoint. You're definitely going to get him on the roster, and you need to spend some fab cash to get him, I believe.
I mean, you look back. 2 weeks ago they set the record for the least amount of rushing attempts in the game with 3. You look back this last week, they had 19, 8 of which were by Jalen Hurts. So Gainwell had 3, Miles Sanders had 7, but less than 2 yards a clip. So granted, I know that Lane Johnson was out this last week, but you don't have anybody. Miles Sanders is somebody right now that I don't think he's going to keep up this level of production. I think he's going to have a couple good weeks. You've seen it. I think Gainwell is definitely somebody that I am buying in on, but Miles Sanders may be somebody to trade very low for and get a guy who could later on the year rank up there a little bit when this Eagles team realizes that they cannot throw the ball 40, 50 times a game.
Yeah, no, that's the thing with Miles Sanders, though, and the part that I don't trust is he's kind of a big play type of running back. If you put him in the lineup and then you're starting him and he gives you a stat line of 11 for 38, somewhere along those lines, that's probably kind of like probably the floor that you're looking at for Miles Sanders, if not worse than that we've seen the last 2 weeks. But it's the knowing when to start him in the weeks that he pops a big gain for like a 70-yard touchdown. Those are the tough ones to guess. It's guessing that volatile touchdown production.
It's a guessing game.
It is.
It really is.
But can you trust him to have him in your week lineup weekly? Like at this point, Miles Sanders has basically become a matchup play running back.
And their matchups don't get any easier. The football team is a pretty easy defense on the passing side, but very difficult as far as the run goes. Same thing with the Cowboys defense. It does not get very easy for these guys. So again, if I could swing a deal and go get him in a league, that's awesome. But I don't want to give up a ton of pieces there either. So
if we we stick on running backs and talk about those a little bit, another guy coming into the week, we saw Joe Mixon get banged up at the end of the game on Thursday night. The initial reaction was that this was going to be a week-to-week ankle issue, but then their head coach comes out just a couple of days ago and says, maybe more day-to-day. So now it opens up the possibility you might see Joe Mixon try to play this week. So it waivers what we're looking at in terms of
waivers
grabbing Samaje Perine off the waiver.
I mean, I think you got to grab him. I mean, I think he's one of those guys, again, we're talking about spending, 40, maybe 50% of your fab budget on Damian Williams, where he's going to be the starter. Joe Mixon, I think it's very questionable. It could be one of those things where they give him maybe 1 week off just to kind of get right and adjust. So, would I spend maybe 20 to 30% of my fab if I really needed it on somebody like Samaje Perine? Sure, especially maybe a little bit more for the Joe Mixon owner.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of worries me a little bit with Perine. It feels like it might be a trap.
It's a trap.
You got 10 days to heal for Joe Mixon, who now seems like he might be kind of trending in more in the direction to play, kind of in a similar fashion we saw Josh Jacobs this last week. A lot of the news wasn't good at the beginning of the week, but then the word started kind of coming down that he was trending a little bit more towards the positive side of questionable. And then obviously we saw that he played on Monday night and was involved in the passing game, which was a shocker. But so that's a situation to monitor there. I think if Joe Mixon is practicing, I say he's playing this weekend. And so that changes my perception on Samaje Perine. Like right now, I think you're more of go get him if you're a Mixon owner just in case.
Spend extra to do it.
Yeah,
you have to, right?
Outside, yeah, you would have to. Now, outside of that, I mean, if you're still rostering a guy, let's say like a David Johnson type, or let's say a Ty Johnson type, or something like that, I'd be okay cutting bait with one of those two guys to get Samaje Perine to add him into your roster right now, because we've seen it in the past. Joe Mixon has been a guy that gets banged up and misses time. So that's kind of a situation where it's an insurance policy more than anything with a Samaje Perine. So that's how I would view him. Now, long dart, a little dart throw here. Now, we mentioned Damian Williams. How interested are you in getting Khalil Herbert? If you miss out on the Damian Williams sweepstake, do you have any interest at all in that long dart, just throwaway flyer pickup of Khalil Herbert? Damian Williams is coming into the week with a little bit of a banged up thigh. Obviously, I think he's going to play this week, but just in the off chance that there's some type of a lingering issue here, or they limit the workload and we see more Herbert this weekend, is that worth a end of the bench prospect pickup?
I mean, could it be worth $1 out there if you don't get any of the big guys? Sure. But I mean, granted, again, there's not a lot of guys that I mentioned. We were talking about Damian Williams. I mean, Damian Williams is the guy to own here. I don't see him missing the week this week. Khalil Herbert is a decent option at best, but I think you're going to see Damian Williams get 60 to 70% of the carries. You're going to see a little Khalil Herbert mixed in, but it's not going to be anything fantasy worthy of anything that I would want to have on my team. Considering some of the options I have on the end of the bench.
So last name I really kind of want to touch on at the running back position. He should be rostered in most leagues as Latavius Murray. He's 47% rostered right now. You're looking at, he took 78.3% of the Baltimore running back rushes this past week. So if he's available, I think you're grabbing him, behind Damian Williams as far as your priorities go right now. I think.
I'm going to disagree. I mean, and here's why. Latavius Murray is one of those guys. Granted, I think he should be rostered on most teams already. So I don't think that's a thing. So if he's out there on your wire, you must be playing in like a 10-team league or something like that. So
Yeah.
he should already have been rostered. Even like the league that I got him in, I got him as Alvin Kamara's handcuff on there, and I kept him on my roster. So when you look at what he did this last week, he got 30 carries for the team minus the 7 carries that Lamar Jackson had. So that's 23. He received all but 5. Le'Veon Bell was crappy. Tyson Williams was out. Didn't even get to dress. And we had 1 carry for my former boy, Devontae Freeman. So I think that means Latavius Murray is the workhorse here. And he's gonna if he's that, I know I have a solid end date for Damian Harris of week 11, whereas Latavius might be
Williams. You said Damian Harris.
Damian Williams. But Latavius is going to be that guy in the rest of the year. So you should add, if he's out there, he's easily a 70% fab for me if he's out there in your league.
So Tyson Williams, cut and bait, correct? We're done.
I don't think so. I mean, Tyson Williams for me passed the eye test. I mean, I don't exactly know why he was a healthy scratch this last week. It doesn't make much sense.
The coaching staff said they wanted to give the veterans a look. Is what the wording was from the coaching staff. That doesn't sound good. I mean, you're talking about, he's an undrafted running back guy. He was a practice squad guy until all the injuries happened. So obviously, I mean, we're looking at a situation where I think the coaching staff knows what they have in him. I think they were a little bit underwhelmed from what they saw from a pass pro perspective. Okay. But I'll give you this too. There was one other nugget that came out, like all this stuff was going on with him getting the healthy scratch and everything. Is there's one beat writer that put out that the coaching staff thought that he started running a little bit more tentatively and a little more scared from the game a couple of weeks ago where he took a big shot.
Okay.
I think that if you hear like negative comments like that from a beat reporter that covers the team, it's given me a little bit of an uneasy feeling. Myself as a guy that's had Tyson Williams on numerous teams heading into the season, now I'm thinking, it might be time to kind of cut that guy right on off the roster there.
I would please cut him. I'm happy to pick him up. I mean, I saw the eye test from the way he ran. This is one of the things I think that I look at as well when I'm analyzing running backs, especially in things like this, is how many times. Look, the Eagles are a prime example with Miles Sanders. Give him more opportunities, and he's likely to pop off 1 or 2 of those. The Ravens are a team that they run the ball a lot. So you don't see it from Le'Veon Bell. You don't see it from Devontae Freeman. Tyson Williams, when he's gotten the ball, has looked good. Please drop him. I'm happy to pick him up and put him on the end of my bitch and replace Philip Lindsay, who has done absolutely nothing, so far this year. So
and outside of that, we'll go and kind of touch on some receivers real quick. Give me a name of a receiver or two that you're looking at on the waiver wire this week.
Yeah, I think a guy that teams were cutting bait on here in the last couple of weeks who really emerged this last week, and that's Darnell Mooney. I think you saw Justin Fields look his way early and often. Allen Robinson got a couple of catches, but it was the Darnell Mooney show. I think you saw them try to use him, so he's definitely somebody that I would be going after.
He's actually out-snapped Allen Robinson each of the last 2 games. He's been on the field for more snaps.
It's not surprising. The other name, and you're going to see some people go after John Ross, James Prioche from Baltimore. I'm not interested in those guys. The one guy who I think, just because of the team situation and the looks he's been getting, Khalif Raymond is somebody that he had 2 touchdowns this last week. He's getting a little bit more of a target share. If I'm going to throw a dart at somebody, he's definitely somebody that I may be wanting to take a look at this next week. So
let's say Randall Cobb coming off a 2 touchdown game. How interested are you there? You flash in the pan? Kind of we'll go lightning round real quick. Flash in the pan, Randall Cobb.
flash or dash to go get him. Flash or dash. I like that.
Sure. Yeah.
He's a flash.
Okay.
He's going to be like a Deshaun Jackson. He might have
Sure.
one good game, but he's not anybody week in, week out.
Yeah, 5 for 69 of the 2 scores this past week. Of course, that was Marquez Valdez-Scantling going on the IR opened up the opportunities for him, so that helped out.
And what did he do? What did he do in the 3 weeks before that?
Big squad
4 for 50 something.
So now outside of that, flash or dash. AJ Green, 24% rostered right now, 6 targets in every game this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit of a dash. I mean, I'm not excited to be able to go out and go get AJ Green, but yeah, I mean, if I got crap on the end of my bench, sure. I mean, he's somebody that could have a nice week, especially if an injury happens there.
Flash or dash Jamison Crowder, 20% owned.
We got to go dash on Jamison Crowder. James, you know,
7 for 61 and a touchdown this last week as first game action.
You know my propensity to go get Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder is one of the most underrated, unheralded wide receivers who just week in, week out, he's not a sexy guy, but he's going to go out there and go get you a 5 or 6 catch game. It may not be for a lot of yards, may not be for a touchdown, but if you need a floor guy to come in and just get you some points, he's your guy.
Valuable commodity in PPR formats, that's for sure. And
absolutely.
And as bad as I hate to say it, I think it's probably time to cut bait with Elijah Moore too, because of Jamison Crowder's reemergence. The fact that we're coming back in, check your ears. I think it might be time. I've actually cut Elijah Moore in a couple of leagues already at this point.
I mean, he should have when he wasn't active for the game this last week.
Yep, I think it's just kind of a sign of things to come with the passing, the hierarchy there with the Jets passing rotation. Is Crowder's going to be that number 2? I was hoping that they were going to deal him off. I think that was going to lead to the ascension for Elijah Moore. That did not happen. So now that we're looking at that, we're looking at a situation where Crowder coming in. Flash or dash Van Jefferson, 5% rostered.
He's kind of right. He's kind of right in the middle. I mean, he's one of those guys that you know, I tell you who he is. He is what we hope Michael Gallup would be. He's on a good passing team. He's what Cedric Wilson is right now. I mean, he's a guy that if you peg the right week on him, like a Christian Kirk, I mean, if you peg the right week, you're going to get a nice start over there. But it's like Christian Kirk did this last week, 1 for 5. I mean, you got weeks that you're not going to get much of anything. You know, he's somebody you can throw a dart at. Again, I'm not overly excited just with the receiving options that they already have in place there. I mean, he's the number at best 3, and really with Tyler Higbee, the 4 in that receiving option. So,
yeah, and that's the situation that you. Speaking of Michael Gallup, he's I think eligible to come off the IR this week. That's a potential buy low candidate if I've ever seen one. You might be able to go out there and get Michael Gallup on the cheap. Somebody
if he's out there, you absolutely want to go pick him up too. That offense they're going to be chucking the ball like crazy here.
Yeah, I doubt that's going to be a situation he's available. If he is, let me get in that league. But
I doubt it too. But hey, I'm sure we got some guys pulling the league with an 8-teamer. And so I mean, he's
last 3. Last 3 that we'll go through real quick here at wide receiver. Curtis Samuel, 40% rostered, flash or dash.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys I'm kind of holding, but I would say dash. You know, I want to see what that offense looks like. I mean, we saw the matchup this last week with what Terry McLaurin did. I mean, look at what he did last year. I'll take a chance on him.
Yeah, I think he's worth kind of a chip and a chance. As we like to mention it from time to time. Hunter Renfrow, flash or dash?
I think he got a dash on this guy. I mean, he's coming into his own. I mean, I think he's the younger version of a guy we just spoke about, Jamison Crowder. He's going to come in, week out, and just get catches. It's too bad we can't get points for hits too. Holy crap, right? Man, the freaking hit he put out on special teams, that's worthy enough for me to go pick him up.
Poor man's Julian Edelman.
Ooh, yeah.
Hunter Renfrow. And then last but not least, we have to mention him because of the news that came out today. Josh Gordon.
I was just about to ask you about that if you didn't ask me.
Josh Gordon.
I mean, he's not necessarily a flash because he didn't do anything. There's not room. I mean, he's the number. Whoever comes in is the number 3 guy there.
There's trash there behind Tyreek Hill. I think you mentioned him just a few minutes ago. Mecole Hardman. Let's just face it. It's just not going to happen for Mecole Hardman.
It's going to happen in 1 week, just like it just did for Randall Cobb. It's going to happen in 1 week, and everybody's going to go jump on him, and he's not going to do shit the rest of the year.
And then you keep we keep flushing in DeMarcus Robinson, but Byron Pringle. These guys keep coming in and out, playoffs here and there. I think Gordon into the bench, dollar, see what he's got. If you've got loose on your roster, you're missing. You got to obviously get rid of DJ Shark. He's going on IR. He's going to be done for the year. You've got to fill that roster spot. If you miss out on some of these other players that we've mentioned, $1. Josh Gordon.
I'd rather go out and get a good streaming defense. I mean, it's not really going to matter at this point. You know what one of the better things to do is, one of the better things to do is, and I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of teams out there that look to stream defenses. If you make a smart move and go out there, so we're getting ready to be in week 5. If you go out there and look at a week 6 streaming defense and get these guys a week early when nobody, they may be playing. Like the Eagles did this last week, been playing, Kansas City, where you're not going to play them, but maybe the next week they got somebody like Jacksonville. That's a move I'd rather make than add Josh Gordon. I mean, look, Josh Gordon is Sammy Watkins. What did Sammy Watkins do in that offense? Squaw freaking douche. Here's the other thing too. I think a lot of listeners have to think about. It's not necessarily that this guy could be the wide receiver too. That's awesome, but he's still the number 3 passing option, if not the 4. I mean, you still got Travis Kelce out there. He's going to get balls. Tyreek Hill's going to get balls. CEH is starting to get a little bit more involved in that offense. They're the number 3 passing option in that offense. Same thing with like Rashad Bateman. They're coming in as the number 3 option because you got a tight end that's going to catch balls there. You got to think about that before you make these moves.
Yeah, you definitely do. So that kind of covers a little bit of the waiver wire picks that we're looking at heading into week 5 here. Jump on some of those names or avoid the ones that we were telling you not to buy in on. But we've got our good friend, the Saban's Burner, coming in here. He's got a 2-part question here.
That's an amazing
headshot of Nick Saban there. Unfortunately, he hardly ever looks like that because the man never takes losses, and that's unfortunate for us other teams in the SEC. But he picked up Schultz off the waivers already. Good job there. Already have Fant. Which would you rather start from now on between those two?
The long and short of it is it depends on the matchup. I think both these guys. Short of it,
part 2 depends on the quarterback for the Broncos,
and this is also true as well. So. I think week in, week out, it just depends on a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of tight ends are a very dependent matchup on a lot of these things. Schultz has looked good so far, but Fant is a little more up and down. I was again I was talking about it today with a coworker. Regression of the mean. I think with Jarwin there, I think with Gallup coming back, Dak Prescott, though, is looking Schultz's way, and you can't ignore that. But he's going to have a week where he's not good. And I think you have to, especially, when Fant's going up against a team where maybe the Broncos wide receivers have some tough matchups on the outside like they did this last week against the Ravens, it's going to be a Fant kind of a week. So you have to look at the quarterback matchup and have to look at who's outside, especially right now until Jerry Jeudy comes back. Cortland Sutton's really, outside of Tim Patrick here and there, Cortland Sutton's really their only healthy, viable option at receiver. So if he's matched up against, a big time corner, it's going to be a Fant kind of a week. So,
yeah, it's like this week I've got Schultz ahead of Fant based on the matchup. I'd say
the same thing
for sure. This week you're probably going Schultz. You have to look at it, if you dive deeper into the deeper analytics portion of things, we've talked about it kind of off the podcast before. It's like Dak Prescott's just not going down the field as much as we would think, which means he's really kind of keeping the ball closer to the line of line of scrimmage. And that's a lot of picks and dump offs to Dalton Schultz, screens to CeeDee Lamb, things like that. So that's why you see Schultz kind of involved like he is right now. is because we're keeping everything really kind of closer to the line of scrimmage. So I agree. I think this is a situation where you're playing the matchup week to week, depending on how things are playing out. But this week I got Schultz ahead. I don't see that changing as we get into the weekend. So that's where I would go, Saban. And then part two, should I stick with Miles Sanders or are we on the Gainwell train for the rest of this season here?
The gain train.
The gain train. Kenny G playing the sexy music on the NFL football field.
It depends on the matchup. Look, they've had some tough matchups here the last couple of weeks. Let's see who the Eagles have this week here. Okay, so we got the Panthers. You saw Zeke just dart them left and right. You saw Tony Pollard dart them left and right. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a competitive game. So this week, I would probably say Miles Sanders is who I would go on. I don't think you're going to see Gainwell as involved, but the Eagles have just not been running the ball. Look at the offense that comes to mind that they kept passing. I think this week they finally realized that they need to run the ball. Is the Jags. I mean, look at what the Jags did with James Robinson. They finally figured out, oh shit, we got a good running back there. Let's run the ball and get some balance on offense. Granted, they still lost, but they should have won the game. It's going to be tough to start Miles Sanders over Gainwell. I know it is, but this is the kind of week that same thing with Saquon Barkley from a couple of weeks ago. He's just against the Falcons. He's just in a get right kind of a game. So that would be my answer this week.
Yeah, that's
tough. I mean, it's tough when he hadn't done anything. But again, that regression of the mean. I mean, he's got to do something, B.
Yeah, because I've currently got him ranked well down. I've still got Sanders ahead of Gainwell for the week. It's not a wide gap. I've got Sanders all the way down at RB 26 right now, headed into the weekend. Gainwell at RB 34. It's really kind of it's hard to trust Miles Sanders, but I think you have to keep him in the lineup this week. You're looking at matchup wise, the Panthers right now are 28th in points allowed to fantasy running backs, 10.5 per game allowed to the running back. So, they score 6.2 fewer fantasy points per at the position on that point per game average. So, that's a tough one, man. I don't like either one this weekend, really. I think we're sticking with Miles Sanders. I'm not feeling great about it though. From that standpoint, I think there's we've got the league. I've got one league right now based on waivers. Prior to them running tonight, tomorrow's waivers. But I've got a waiver claim in. I'm losing David Montgomery. I've got to try to fill that void. But as of right now, I've got Kenny Gainwell in my starting lineup because of that. So that's
you may be forced in, just like that situation. Maybe forced into starting him. So
yeah, that's that weird situation there. So that Saban, that's what we're thinking about there. He jumped in too. He said Crowder, he's got a waiver claim in for him already. He hoping he does well like he did last year. I think it's trending that way. Based on how the Jets are going to be playing from behind a lot, I think that Wilson is going to do
they're
well.
They're going to throw. Holy crap! Are they going to throw the ball? It's just kind of like the Jags.
They
just don't want to run.
It only helps a rookie quarterback like a Wilson to have that trusted guy that catches those passes kind of close to the line of scrimmage, like a Jamison Crowder does. So I think that's what we're looking at there. But let's kind of jump into a little bit of the rankings talk real quick. Getting into that, jumping in here. Got my quarterback rankings up on the board now. Top 23. This is the initial rankings that we're getting into that we're going to talk about. Just an overview more than anything. You really can't kind of get into a detailed breakdown of the rankings here, but obviously I think the one biggest standout that you're going to see here is I've got Russell Wilson at QB 16 for the week right now.
Okay.
Horrible matchup that they're playing with the Rams. If you kind of go back and look into some of the numbers, and I did that prior to kind of jumping into my rankings, he only had one touchdown in the 2 games last year against the Rams. Performed very, very subpar in both games, and obviously, I think that's a trend that you're probably going to see again this year. There's not really any change between the two. But the disconcerting fact, I think, right now with Russell Wilson is just that volume of that offense.
Mm-hmm.
They've just not been performing well. So
sure,
I think this week is a week that if you're looking possibly benching Russell Wilson this week, if you've got a better option, if there's somebody out there. I mean, like last week, I had a matchup where I played Tyler Heineke as my starting quarterback in one league, just based on the matchup alone. Yeah, worked out really well.
Yeah, I mean, don't be scared. I mean, waiver pickup too, which I picked him up in a couple of the leagues that you and I did this last week, just as more of a late year thing. I didn't expect him necessarily to be going so far, but Trey Lance can be a guy, this week that has at least a halfway decent matchup. Could be a guy you start. One guy who I think you have ranked up a bit low over here is my backup quarterback in quite a few leagues, and that's Daniel Jones. I think he's going to be coming out. They're going to be chucking the heck out of the ball against the Cowpokes there, and I think you're going to see him have a decent week. So, but I guess I would probably have to agree with you there. On Russell Wilson.
The way I've got Daniel Jones there, QB 14, like you see there. I agree with you. There's a lot of positives to the matchup there, but it's more of a kind of a point of looking at a lot of the quarterbacks that I have ahead of him currently that I like a little bit better based on the matchup. So, I mean, obviously, I think Daniel Jones is going to be a fringe QB1 this week. I think really you can take any of those guys in that grouping that I've got from 10 down to 14, 15 and can plug them in as a low end QB1. I think there's going to be small differences between the point production in those guys. You can really kind of flip flop them. You see Justin Herbert, I've got him down there, QB12 right now. Coming off a 3 touchdown game, but he only threw for 222. Most of the damage was done in the first half against the Raiders, and then obviously they sat on the ball for some unknown reason.
I don't think it's a trend continue. I think he's another guy. I think you have a rank a bit low for my liking. So
I think based on how he's been performing, that's what I'm looking at, and plus the matchup with the Browns. That's going to be a tough matchup, even in a home game. They're right now giving up 19. They're 19th in points allowed to the QB. So got him dropping down just a little bit based on the matchup. I think those cornerbacks for Cleveland are pretty decent. And I'm not really expecting to see this as much of a higher scoring game as we were anticipating the Raiders-Chargers game to be just last night. So it's kind of affecting my ranking with Justin Herbert currently.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you there.
Hey, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things. Again, I think it was more game script that the Chargers were trying to run clock, sit on the ball. They're up 21-0. They let the Raiders come back in. I don't know what, just like you said on a tweet, I don't know what the hell they were doing. You got the Raiders having their top 2 corners out to where you just got to throw the ball on the outside, and these guys, especially Mike Williams,
just put the ball in the air.
Line, just chuck it up. It's gonna be a touchdown or a positive gain, and for that not to happen, you ready? I haven't used this word in a while. I'm flummoxed.
I'm flummoxed. Yeah, I was flummoxed last night as I lost a close matchup after Herbert brought me back and left me 1 touchdown shy of a victory. He had them all. He had 3 in the first half and did not give
me
a big old squadoosh in the second half. I love it. Yeah, but anyways, going through I'll run through the top 12 real quick by name. Josh Allen at 1, Kyler Murray 2, Dak Prescott 3, Patrick Mahomes 4, Matthew Stafford at 5, Jalen Hurts at 6, Aaron Rodgers 7, Lamar Jackson at 8, Tom Brady at 9, Kirk Cousins at 10, Derek Carr 11, and then the aforementioned Justin Herbert rounding out the top 12 at QB 12 for this week. We'll say rookie quarterbacks real quick. Obviously, there's a little issue. We're wondering how Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be health-wise as the week goes along. I know a lot of people are hoping Trey Lance is going to play and they're going to just avoid Jimmy Grapes. But you heard Kyle Shanahan earlier today said, hey, we're going to let him see if he can practice. He might play. So that's out there. That's kind of a situation to be monitored. I think if I'm for sure knowing Trey Lance is the starter and we're saying no to Jimmy Grapes, I'm moving Trey Lance up into that QB1 territory. Okay. I think that's going to be a situation to monitor throughout the week. Outside of that, Justin Fields, I've got him down there at 22. I'm still not feeling great. I think things are on the rise for that offense, but it's still kind of a wait and see situation for them. But then, of course, you have your boneheaded coach in Chicago that says, keep saying, if Andy Dalton's, you got to go play Andy Dalton if he's healthy. Sure, coach.
All right, buddy.
Sure. You keep pushing that pipe dream there, fella. But
I mean, especially now, you can't do that. He's won a game. He looked good. You can't go backwards now. So
no. I mean, don't pull like what the Dolphins did last year. You put Tua in, and then Tua struggled for those 4 or 5 games. You pulled him back out to put Ryan Fitzpatrick back in, who looked great when he came back in.
Right.
So I think you need to avoid that situation. Leave your rookie in and let him take his lumps and learn his lessons in the NFL. I think that's the way to monitor that. So outside of that, that's kind of the initial QB rankings and for the week. We'll see how those kind of change throughout the week once I get practice reports and kind of get into a few things. But we'll go to running back next. Looking at my running backs, obviously going running back Derrick Henry right off the top. Got to go with a big man there. I actually did last week, had Austin Eckler at 2, and he finished very, very high at running back for the week. So that was kind of a good pull.
2, right?
I believe so. Yeah. So
right behind Derrick Henry.
And as I was looking at my numbers and everything earlier today for accuracy rankings for the industry, I was 4th in the industry at running back rankings last week. So kudos to me for making some good calls. Finally, we're trending on the way up. It's been a rough
inside the top 100.
Yeah, it's been a rough first couple of weeks, but as I have to say, I'm crediting getting some more advanced analytical data under my belt. It kind of helps your rankings once you get some more numbers to go by. But yeah, looking at the numbers here, we got going through the top 12. Derrick Henry at 1, Aaron Jones at 2. The all of a sudden on fire Saquon Barkley at 3, Dalvin Cook at 4, Ezekiel Elliott at 5, Nick Chubb at 6, Austin Eckler at 7, James Robinson back into the top 12 at number 8. Darrell Henderson making an appearance as a top 12 running back this week at RB9. Alvin Kamara at RB10, DeAndre Swift at 11, and Jonathan Taylor rounding out your top 12. So got a couple new faces here in the top 12 with James Robinson and Darrell Henderson, which I actually did move James Robinson up last week after Carlos Hyde was inactive before the game. So, but now more of a fixture inside the top 12. We're probably expecting to see that workload kind of on a consistent basis this week now from this point forward. So I like James Robinson in a home matchup against the Tennessee Titans. Woeful defense. So I think that was what we ran into a lot last week, and especially in FanDuel this past weekend. A lot of landmines at the running back position. There's a lot of touchy situations out there. You say I've got Cordell Patterson down there, the guy he's a top 5 running back in fantasy right now. He's at RB21.
Is he like 3 or 4?
I
think
he's
crazy good right now. How you have him, why you ranked him so low when he's been doing so well, and it's a matchup against the Jets, I will have no idea.
Matchup against the Jets and usage more than anything. I'm still not ready to jump in and trust him with both feet just yet.
I'm not either, but
I mean, there's a situation. Like I said, this is initial early week rankings. There's probably a lot that can be changed throughout the week. The matchup is there, but it's also too something where Mike Davis might kind of have a situation where he could maybe have a decent game if the Falcons were so inclined to try to actually run the football. Yeah, I mean, the Jets are fourth in points allowed to the running back position right now. Yeah, that's from ground statistics, which we know, Cordero Patterson's not really been involved as a rusher so far. So if that's the situation,
correct.
Davis might find some holes and kind of get a little bit of leeway this week. That's kind of a situation to look at there too. But one name missing out of the top 24, Chris Carson. I've got him at RB25.
You know my thoughts on Chris Carson. I'm not a fan. Have never been a fan.
Horrible matchup against the Rams.
He may have some weeks where he is good and is going to do something. However, this ain't the week.
No, no, it's not. I think this is clearly a week you can probably firmly plan him on your bench this week. Outside of that,
and then you got Alex Collins coming in and getting the touch, and
there's a lot of there's some conjecture out there because the early turnaround week, you've got the Sunday late afternoon game. Now they're playing on Thursday night this week. A lot of people were kind of under the assumption that maybe they're saving some of that workload and don't want to overload them on the Sunday game. Then you have a turnaround quickly into a Thursday night game. There you have a lot of people talking about that with the that workload getting split the way it did this last weekend. But outside of that, I think there's some matchups to attack at running back this weekend. Just as I've gone through and done my initial reaction there. And you can see Damian Williams, RB20, in that game on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders right now.
I mean,
RB2.
That's something you can definitely attack, I think.
Yeah, he's an RB2. I think workload alone, he's going to see pass catches out of the backfield. I think he's a surefire RB2 this week. Any disagreement there?
No, I absolutely agree. Again, I think you've got him even ranked a little too low. Josh Jacobs, I think you got ranked a little too high here. I think Chuba Hubbard's a guy. I mean, you had 2 Sam Darnold rushing touchdowns here. You give one of those to him, which I obviously expected, but somebody else who I think you got ranked way too high on my list. I think it's a horrible matchup for Cleveland going out to the Chargers there. I do not have Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt ranked very high at all coming into the week this week. And hopefully, knock on wood, I will be able to do my first expert rankings on the website here this week. I could have done it this last week, but I finally remembered that I haven't been doing it. You got me access to the site. So anyway, those are 2 guys who I'm not a fan of Cleveland going to LA and playing in that matchup there.
Yeah, I mean I think that'd be a situation like Nick Chubb's been kind of solidly inside my top 5 most weeks. I'm starting to kind of bump him down a little bit based on how that backfield's being monitored and worked. But I agree with you. I think that might be a situation I get him bumped down even a little more as we get into the week and kind of dive into the numbers. As you can say, how do you feel about Alvin Kamara being at RB10?
I think it's something as far as Kamara being down there. I mean, he's got a matchup against Washington. You saw it earlier in the year when he had a game where he didn't have any receptions. The next week, there was a lot of targets going his way. Again,
he corrected it.
Correct. And then and then the same thing with Chuba Hubbard. I mean, you also had Taysom Hill out there getting the rushing touchdowns. Where again, I think you're going to have a get right game on both of those guys' part there this week.
And then the split in Detroit, how are you feeling about that moving forward? You heard Dan Campbell last week say that they were going to get DeAndre Swift more involved, but then you saw Swift with only, I believe, 8 rushes this last week to Jamal Williams' 14. But you're still seeing Swift be viable as a pass catcher, so that it kind of evens itself out.
Yeah, I'm just exactly where I was on Swift before this week. I think his upside's a lot more than your love child, Jamal Williams.
Hey, that's good to see Jamal Williams still sticking around, though.
Trying to remain fantasy relevant.
So reports right now coming out of San Francisco, I was going to touch on real quick before we get into wide receiver real fast. 49ers did release earlier today Kerryon Johnson and Chris Thompson off the practice squad, which leads me to believe Elijah Mitchell's going to be good to go this week. How are you viewing the backfield with Elijah Mitchell back healthy?
I never really thought Elijah Mitchell was somebody to really go after. You had all these people spending all all are damn near close to all their fab on there. And Trey Sermon didn't look amazing, but he did pretty dang good. So I don't think he's somebody again that I would be just going after like crazy out there. So I think Trey Sermon's the guy until I hear otherwise.
Yeah, I think outside of that, I mean, it's kind of hard to take it away, but outside of that one big play, Elijah Mitchell has really not kind of been extremely productive and efficient. But we see, we look at the box scores and everything like that, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that guy had pretty good numbers. Nah, you have to kind of dive into the context a little bit there. Yeah. So outside of that, that's kind of what we're looking at running back. Like I said, there are some opportunities to attack this week at that position. We'll get more into it. Obviously, taking your questions throughout the week, so definitely hit us up at woo_fantasy or either one of us, our respective Twitter accounts. But at the wide receiver position, got those switched over. Devontae Adams back at his number 1 spot. Cooper Kupp 2, Justin Jefferson 3, Stephon Diggs at 4. I've got Tyreek Hill at 5. DJ Moore, Mr. Consistent, at 6. DeAndre Hopkins at 7. Deebo Samuel flying up the board to wide receiver 8 this week. CeeDee Lamb at 9. Calvin Ridley at 10. Keenan Allen at 11. And then Adam Thielen rounding things off, wide receiver 12. That's your wide receiver 1s currently ranked for me heading into the week.
Yeah, so I will not be having Tyreek Hill ranked even as a number 2 receiver this week. I think he is not gonna have a good matchup against Buffalo. So
yeah, and I think that's a byproduct of the type of, let's look at it from a perspective of talent across from him, from Tre'Davious White. Yeah, that's kind of been, everybody's looked at that potential matchup and kind of been scared away to a degree. 2 weeks ago, Terry McLaurin puts up a decent stat line. I think it was like 4 for 62. Brandon Cooks, as they were trailing for this entire game this last week, even he puts up a decent stat line in a game where they were just getting murdered this last week. Let me pull that up real quick. 7 for 47. Decent.
I mean, yeah.
Or 5 for 47. Yeah, that's decent.
Not top 5 overall type level.
No,
I'm not saying
at all.
I mean, Tyreek is a different receiver than those guys, but
he is.
I think he's going to get a bit of regression here this week. Is my ultimate prediction here.
Yeah, and you got, obviously Deebo Samuel's been a guy that's been a hotly debated wide receiver over the last few weeks. It seems like he's just taken over that role as the man in San Francisco.
I agree.
I mean, he's performed admirably. He's been consistent to this point. And even as they put in Trey Lance last week, we saw, he gets hit on the big play down the field. I think Deebo Samuel, you're riding him with confidence. And then obviously, a game against Arizona, they're going to be trailing. They're going to have to throw the ball. So I like Deebo Samuel to kind of keep the train rolling.
I don't know necessarily about them trailing, but I mean, I think he's one of those guys that he's just gonna get a lot of that workload there.
Yeah, that's definitely, I believe that's going to be the case for sure this week. I mean, you're looking at, he has gone target wise each of the 4 games, 12, 8, 10, 12. About as
not a lot at all, right?
Yeah, none whatsoever. He's averaging, let's say, 11 targets a game for 4 games. That's not bad at all.
Not at all.
So, I mean, he's a guy that you got at an enormous discount in drafts too. So people that have Deebo Samuel right now on their rosters are loving life because you probably drafted the guy as your wide receiver 5 in a lot of these leagues, and now he's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. So it only helps the consistency of your roster.
Yeah, again, to where I think my strategy this year and coming in on some of these guys, and you've got a lot of them here in your top 24 that you see, you've got a lot of these guys who you drafted a little bit later that are performing at or better than some of these guys you drafted in the first 2 rounds. So, one guy that you have ranked at number 10 right there, Calvin Ridley, is somebody that in a lot of leagues this week, I think you can go. I mean, his value is never going to be lower in any point, I think, in this season. CeeDee Lamb, a guy that you have ranked at 9, has had a bad couple of weeks as well. So, definitely go and see what you can do for those guys.
Calvin Ridley, though, only a number. I think there's 5 or 6 receivers that have caught 5 balls in every game so far this year. 34 games. Calvin Ridley is one of them.
Yeah, the touchdowns are not there. I think he was number 2 in air yards this week, as well. So I mean, he's getting the looks.
It's getting there. We're getting there. Same thing with Kyle Pitts, and I'll kind of point that out too, just for real fat. I think Kyle Pitts is on the come up too. So a lot of people are disappointed for the price they paid for Kyle Pitts, but I think you're on a situation where he's getting there. I've seen a lot of the questions so far on Twitter where people are kind of worried. And it's, I'm dealing with the same situation that a lot of the people out there are dealing with right now too, is that you drafted some players. They're just not performing well yet, but you obviously it's coming. It's on the way.
Right.
You just cannot give up just yet. And I think that's kind of a situation like a Kyle Pitts, like a Calvin Ridley. It's on the way up.
Sure. I mean, it's one of those things too, if you got a league to where you're, 0-4, 1-3, it may be time to trade your stud off and go get, a couple of, mid-tier kind of guys to be able to go and push your roster up a little bit. One bad week by, a guy like Tyreek Hill, we've seen, the first couple of weeks here, great week 1, great this last week, completely absent in weeks 2 and 3.
Yep.
Would you trade him off for, Deebo Samuel and a Darrell Henderson? I feel like my team would be better in that case if my team is losing and not doing very well. So know your roster, know what guys are coming on and off the IR, and see what deals you can work. It's definitely time to start doing those kind of things.
So Mike Williams, I got a wide receiver 14, had the bad game, just this last week on Monday night. Are we expecting to see that kind of come back this next week? Maybe that was a little bit of just kind of an off game, just bad night, bad play calling. Moving this week, going to Cleveland, you're probably seeing Ward mostly on Keenan Allen. So I'm thinking maybe Mike Williams might be the beneficiary there.
It's certainly what I'm thinking on my end. I mean, again, you're gonna have guys that or they're gonna have one bad week. They're not gonna have a Devontae Adams year to where he just goes off every single week out there. So he's definitely somebody that I think for me, I'm starting with confidence.
Before I switch over to tight end, I'll go down the list a little bit further here. I've got at wide receiver 34. Is this the week that Jacoby Myers scores his first NFL receiving touchdown?
Houston. I really think that it's not. No, I think this is going to be one of those weeks you're going to see him have an okay week, but I think it's going to be Nelson Aguilar finding his way. Kendrick Moore, as much as that could possibly happen, I don't think it's going to be the week. Like
I feel like from the first Anchorman movie where they were like Panda Watch. I feel like we're on Jacoby Watch. We're waiting on a touchdown. It's coming. I mean, like he's 14 targets, 12 targets last week. The guy is getting looked at a lot right now. He's gone 9 receptions, 8 receptions each of the last 2 weeks. It's got to happen eventually.
Right?
At some point, I understand they get down into the red zone, and it's Hunter Henry, it's Jonnu Smith that are getting the looks down there. Please, come on, Belichick. Let's get Jacoby Myers. Show him some love. Reward all that workload. It feels like the Varsity Blues, the running back from Varsity Blues that was
Booby Miles.
No, Varsity Blues. The John Moxon, the John Moxon movie. Not Boo. You're thinking of Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
The guy that was doing all the work from 20 to 20, running all up and down the field, but then they would get inside the goal line territory and they would let the quarterback throw the touchdown to get his stats piled up. And I feel like that's Jacoby Myers. We need to switch that situation around and get him in the end zone finally. Let's not discount the fact that I've got him in a few leagues, but I don't want to point that out. But anyways, jumping into the tight ends.
Counterpoint.
Tight ends real quick, and we'll kind of go through them real fast and kind of hammer the point home as we finish tonight's podcast here. But obviously, Travis Kelce, got him as the number one option this week. Kind of a down week this last week. TJ Hawkinson, I think he's been kind of on the downward trend the last couple of weeks too. I think a rebound is in
Good get
order.
right game. Yeah.
Yep. And George Kittle, if healthy, that matchup against Arizona, I think looks pretty good for him. Darren Waller, I've got it 4 right now, but there's a kicker here because the Bears are one of the toughest defenses against opposing tight ends in fantasy right now. I think Darren Waller could be a guy that you're obviously starting him, but don't expect a big stat line from Darren Waller this week.
Yeah, I think it may be a 4 for 50.
Yeah, I think it's kind of going to be one of those ho-hum type games for Darren Waller. He might even kind of slide even further down my my rankings as we get further along in the week. But jumping in there, you see I've got Mark Andrews at 5, Kyle Pitts 6, Dawson Knox at 7. I've got Mike Gesicki at 8, Tyler Higbee at 9, Dalton Schultz at 10, Dallas Goedert at 11, Hunter Henry rounding out the top 12. So jumping in there, of course, you got some new faces here at tight end. Jumping back into the TE1 category, Mike Gesicki is a name that was left for dead, but then Jacoby Brissett comes into the starting rotation for the Dolphins, and Mike Gesicki has turned it around.
Touchdowns each the last couple of weeks, yeah.
Did touchdown last week. Gall goes 5 for 57. Week prior, he goes 10 receptions for 86. He likes Jacoby Brissett being under center. So as long as Brissett is the quarterback, Gesicki is probably going to be a consistent tight end 1 in my rankings because of that. Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz, both riding a hot hand. Are we thinking that this continues and that they're going to be tight end saviors off the waiver wire this year, or are we thinking this is fool's gold at some point?
I mean, you don't necessarily have to be getting the kind of production they're getting to finish as a tight end 1. I mean, you had plenty of guys do that last year that finishes a tight end 1. So, I think it's one of those guys you just need a little consistent production week to week. Looking at the matchup, I love Travis Kelce as the one there. Again, I don't necessarily see Tyreek Hill doing a lot, but Kelce didn't exactly have a great game this last week either. So I think this is a good get right game for him. And what you would think to be a difficult matchup with Buffalo, that's the kind of matchups he seems to excel in. But getting to your point on Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz, Schultz is a guy, again, I don't know that I necessarily love this week. Knox is another guy, I don't necessarily know that I love those guys this week to find the end zone, but you're 4 for 40. That's about what I'm seeing those guys at for me this week.
Yep. It's like we talked about earlier with Saban there, Noah Fant. I've got him outside the top 12 at 13. Matchup against Pittsburgh. Obviously, if Teddy Bridgewater is going to be out this week with a concussion, and they've got Drew Lock there, I think that offense, I think both offenses in general in that game that's going to be a crap show between those two, and it's seriously going to hinder Noah Fant. But this has kind of been one of those weeks as I'm looking at the rankings early on this week. This position, I think that there's kind of a good tier of guys to really go out and play this week as I'm looking at some of these players here. I think there's quite the division, and we're starting to see a lot of these players kind of separate themselves from the rest of the field, and it's a wider group of guys that we've been accustomed to. I mean, you're seeing, I've got Dallas Goedert at 11, and I think he's a guy, he's been as consistent as any with Jalen Hurts at quarterback this year. So, that's a guy that you could obviously move him up to the rankings this week as well. But I think there's a nice thick group at this position that's seeing a little bit of depth.
Thick group.
Yes.
Interesting.
There's good depth with this group this week.
There's a lot of guys here that I think based on matchup is somebody to consider starting on a week in, week out basis. Somebody you've got down ranked at number 20 was somebody I thought was going to have a good week this week and wound up not doing much of anything. So that leads me to believe that he's going to have a good matchup and a good game this next week. That's Robert Tonyan, who's done nothing so far this year. So again, in a get right game, I think he's going to be somebody that I will definitely be starting and maybe hitting up some FanDuels on this week myself.
Yeah, he has been utterly useless to this point in the season. And then facing this week, 17th against opposing tight ends, the Bengals have allowed, as far as fantasy points are allowed so far. They're only allowing 4.3 points per game to tight ends. It's pretty tough. So that's for me. The workload, I don't think all of a sudden is just going to become a bounce back game for Tanyan, and so that's why I'm down on him. It just doesn't seem like it's there right now.
Right.
That connection between he and and Aaron Rodgers, where last year it seemed like it was first read Devontae Adams, that's not there. Second read, bam, Robert Tanyan. Right now it seems like Aaron Rodgers is Devontae Adams. Out of the backfield, Aaron Jones. Boom. Throw it over here to Lazard. And then last week we saw Randall Cobb.
How'd that go again?
Bam. Boom. Bah. Yeah.
You sound like a Batman comedy.
Or I'm John Madden. You got it written, you go hit the bring and it's and bang! Touchdown. Yeah, that's Robert Tanyan. They're going to run up the curl and hit the thing. Bang! Touchdown. Yeah.
Back to you, Pat.
Yeah. What we're doing, Pat? Yeah, that's it's good old John Madden. I wish we had some commentators like John Madden and Pat Summerall. Those were the good old days. Takes it back.
Probably because the freaking Cowboys are on every week, and that's the game that they were covering.
Yeah, it's like the CBS SEC game every week has to be Alabama or Georgia.
Oh, completely right now. Well, it used to be Tennessee for a very long time. So, but
what 20 years ago? Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Living in the past.
Were the days.
So that's our rankings through this week. Obviously, I'm going to keep those updated. I'll put out my rankings list here in just a little while for those of you that are listening to the podcast and not watching this on our YouTube page. I'll put that out. But I definitely want to put that out there. Go follow us on the YouTube page. That is the Woo Fantasy YouTube page. Check us out there. Like and subscribe. Definitely need all your guys' support out there for sure. So hit us up there. But as always, follow us on rotoballer.com. Rotoballer.com, promo code Woo Fantasy. Right now, 60% off the NFL Premium Pass. You cannot beat that. Loads of tools to go and use on that website there, whether it's the lineup optimizers for DFS or the Who to Start tool, which is pretty awesome. You plug in about 4 players and it gives you the best option to start in your lineup. So go and check that out if you've not done so already. FanDuel and Underdog Fantasy also sponsoring the show as well. That's promo code Woo Fantasy and promo code Woo individually. So go check us out there and get yourself some extra money for DFS. NFL Week 5. Don't forget, obviously we got the Thursday night game this week. It's Rams Seahawks. Got a big one. We're gonna have that one, and then I'll be here live tweeting. I'll have things ready to go for that. If you need some help, want to talk during the football game, we got you covered. Woo_fantasy.
We'll be coming to you live with the London game going on Sunday.
And that's what I was going to mention too. Yeah, don't forget early Sunday morning. There's a lot of people that forget about this from time to time, but early Sunday morning lineup lock. That is the Falcons and Jets from London. God help those British over there that have to watch that game live and in person. I feel like that's some type of a terrorist attack on our part for sending that game over there across the pond.
All right.
But so yeah, shots fired indeed. So, anyways, that's where to find us throughout the rest of this week. Just keep those reminders ready to go. Be ready to follow along with us on Sunday morning, of course, as well as we come to you with the Woo Fantasy Game Day Live edition on Sunday morning, live on the YouTube page for Roto Baller. And, of course, anywhere you can find us. That is my Roto Superstar account on Twitter as well. We'll be on there. And the Roto Baller Twitter account also. So we'll be ready to go there. So be ready to jump in with us on Sunday morning for those last-minute start sits. We got you covered. But till then, any other last tidbits we want to get out there to everybody?
Man, go out there like we were talking about with guys like Calvin Ridley. You know, it's time to start dealing for some of these guys, these underperforming guys that have been doing that. You know, I say it every week, but, you know, again, I think you've got to hit the trade wire up and deal some of these Cordell Patterson kind of guys who've just gone off. Is not going to keep up their value all year. Go trade those guys and go get some year-long value on your teams.
Yeah, and it's like I mentioned. You have 4 weeks right now. We are quarters of the season in. You've got a lot of advanced analytical metrics that you can go and jump into. So go check out your snap percentages. I'll look at the trends when it comes to who's playing more than others. That kind of gives you a good bearing on whose efficiency is going to drop and whose efficiency should rise. Target those players that should be on the rise and try to trade off those players that cannot keep that uber performance up, like a Cordell Patterson I previously mentioned there. You're at this point in the season, it's make or break time. You're 1-3. Or you're ready to make some moves at 2-2 and try to bolster your roster. We've got bye weeks coming in, so you got to be ready to be prepared for those as well. So kind of get your roster shaped, informed, and ready for the most optimal lineup sets each week. So that's something to kind of do. Keep a mind on and look for in the next coming weeks too. So where can they find you on?
Money on your mind.
Where can they find you on Twitter there?
Yeah, you can find me at the Real FF Goat.
And of course, I am at Roto Superstar. This is at Woo Fantasy, and we will check you guys out on Sunday morning for
Woo! Fantasy Podcast.